My older brother drowned 11 years ago, and my parents left his bedroom completely untouched, like a museum. But today, I found a hidden DVD in his bottom drawer, and when I played the distorted footage, I heard my dead brother laughing. I froze the frame, and my blood ran cold. The timestamp on the video was from 7 months after his funeral, and as I stared at the impossible date, a wet, static-filled voice whispered straight from the television, "You noticed." Hey guys, welcome back. Tonight we have 3 genuinely unsettling stories from r/no sleep. And just so we're clear, this is my real voice, not AI. A real human being sitting here reading these to you. Alright, let's get into it. His brother died when he was 7 years old. He was 13. He drowned in the lake down the street from their house. His parents never touched his room. They tried once, but they couldn't do it. Too raw. After that, the door just stayed shut. His room became a kind of museum of him. That was 11 years ago. His room still looks the same. This morning, while packing for college, he thought he'd finally go in there. Nothing dramatic, just a few hoodies, maybe a keepsake or two, something to hold on to when he got homesick. He'd been in his brother's room plenty of times before, sat on his bed, looked through his shelves, but he'd never really gone digging. That felt wrong, and he had no inclination to. He just missed his brother. That wasn't his intention today either. It wasn't his intention to find a stack of DVDs shoved into the bottom drawer of his dresser. 3 of them, just labelled 1, 2, and 3. The only DVD player in the house is still hooked up to his brother's old TV. Everything else went streaming years ago. For a minute he told himself not to do it. They weren't his, they probably didn't matter. He picked up some of the items he had collected, put the DVDs back in the drawer, and returned to his room. Tonight they started calling to him. He knows how that sounds. It wasn't just curiosity eating at him, it felt physical, a pull in his chest. So he crept back across the hall, slipped into his brother's room, locked the door behind him so his parents wouldn't hear, and put in the first DVD. It was a home video. He didn't even know they had any. He doesn't remember his parents ever owning a camera. The video starts with static, then clears just enough to show something. The picture is muddy, warped. It could be the living room, but the furniture looks wrong. Everything is too big or too small, shifting every time the frame jitters. Sometimes it almost looks like a bedroom, sometimes like a hallway. No faces, no clear shapes, just flickering shadows that don't match what the voices are saying. Because there are voices, familiar ones. Laughter, clinking dishes, and his mum calling his brother's name. It sounds like family in the background, just out of sight. He hears his brother's laughter, and the sound swallows him whole. It rings through his head, bouncing off the bones that make up his skull. Then beneath it is another voice, low, deliberate, close enough that you couldn't miss it. You haven't noticed yet. Then the video cut off, just like that. He scrambled to replay it, not even thinking about the other 2 discs still stacked under the TV. He just wanted to hear him laugh again, that laugh. He tried not to think about the end, though the fear of it was crawling slowly up his spine as he hit play. Because the way it spoke, it sounded like it wasn't part of the recording at all. Like it was speaking to the camera, to him. He pressed play again, this time pausing every few seconds, desperate to make sense of what he was seeing. But nothing held still. Everything on the film looked almost familiar, like a room you swear you've been in but can't place. The walls are a little too narrow, and the colours are washed out enough to make it something you've never seen before. It made him feel like his brain was short-circuiting. Then he froze the frame, just before the moment his brother laughed. And there it was, a caption, faint and yellow, burned into the corner of the screen. July 30th. 2015. 7 months after his brother drowned. His first thought was that it was a glitch. It had to be. The camera must have been off by a year. He forced himself to breathe and shoved back the rising panic. Then he pressed play again. His brother's laugh filled the room, and for a second his fear washed away. It was just him again. He was alive. Warm, present. A bittersweet rush of comfort and grief. But then the voice returned, closer this time, wet against the microphone, broken and cutting in and out like static. You noticed. He ripped the DVD out of the player and threw it across the room. He doesn't even know why he did it. Adrenaline, he guesses. His hands were shaking so hard he couldn't control himself. He's trying to think of logical explanations. He wants to believe there's one, but every reason he comes up with feels paper thin. He bolted back to his room and dove under the covers, like that would help. He doesn't want to watch the other videos. He doesn't, but he can feel them pulling at him, like they're not finished, like he owes them something. He can't sleep. It's dark, it's late, the rain just started. The bathroom faucet always drips, but tonight it sounds so much louder. You could almost confuse it for footsteps. Alright, 1 down, 2 to go. That one was about a voice on the other side of something. A recording, a screen, a distance that shouldn't be crossable. This next one is different. No recordings, no static, just a lawn. He didn't realize his new customer used to be his neighbor until he pulled into her driveway. The street name had sounded vaguely familiar when he first read it. A few landmarks on the drive over had sparked something, nothing solid, just a prickling sense of recognition he couldn't place. It only clicked when he actually saw his old childhood home sitting right beside his customer's property. His uncle had moved him out of this quiet neighborhood when he was 6. He barely remembered anything about living on this street. His girlfriend Ellie said that wasn't quite normal, told him gently that it was probably his brain blocking things out on purpose. He sat gripping the steering wheel long after he'd parked, staring at his childhood home. It backed onto a large woodland area, tall trees looming far above the roof. The bungalow itself looked abandoned, shattered windows, empty bottles scattered across dead yellow grass. Clearly no one had lived there in a long time. He considered leaving, but he'd only started his lawn mowing business a few months ago. He needed the money. This woman was only his 3rd customer. She hadn't called like the others. She'd emailed instead. "Am interested in your service. Every week, Sunday work." He replied that Sundays were fine and asked for the address. She sent it, followed by another message. "Door left open Sundays. Money on table. Help self to drink and meal." It struck him as odd that she'd contacted someone who lived an hour away instead of a local business, but she'd promised a generous tip. Her lawn was wildly overgrown, knee-high grass, thick and uneven. The house itself was perfectly normal, a neat 2-story place with a front porch, well kept enough that the state of the yard felt odd, almost like a choice. As he mowed, his gaze kept drifting to the fence, separating her property from his old home. It was enormous, easily 10 feet tall. He couldn't believe something like that had been approved in a quiet suburban street. But it wasn't just the size. Every time he looked at it, pressure built behind his eyes. The sensation of a memory forcing its way up, while something inside him resisted just as hard. Then, for a split second, he remembered hair. Long black strands spilling down the fence from the other side, tangled and thin, draped over the timber, clinging to the wood, hanging there like a ragged curtain. He had frozen on his cheap plastic tricycle. One of the back wheels was missing, so he had to balance his weight just right to keep it upright. The hair shifted, and slowly, above the lip of the fence, a pale forehead rose. There were eyes, white and cloudy. He only saw them for a moment, but he knew immediately who they were peeking down at. Him. Only him. Then there had been a sound behind him, maybe a voice, maybe someone calling his name. The eyes vanished, the forehead sank out of sight. The hair slid upward, strand by strand, slithering back over the fence until there was nothing left at all. Cold washed through his body. He tightened his grip on the mower handle and focused on the lines of grass ahead. He didn't look at the fence again. An hour later, the lawn looked respectable. He went inside to collect his payment. She'd said to let himself in. One of the first things he noticed was the ceiling, unusually high. It made the space feel wide and open, almost cavernous, incredibly cold inside. There was money laid out neatly on the kitchen table. Beside it, a glass jug filled with what looked like lemonade, ice cubes floating inside, a clean glass, a sandwich on a plate. He picked up the money and nearly choked when he counted it. 4 $50 notes. He only charged $60. He took 100 and left the other 100 on the table, just in case. That was when he heard something upstairs, a wheeze, wet and uneven. like air being dragged through damaged lungs. After that, 2 sharp creaks snapped through the house in quick succession, floorboards protesting under sudden weight. Someone was definitely home. He edged closer to the stairs despite himself. Was she hurt? Had she fallen? But another part of him was screaming to leave. The feeling was sudden and absolute, like stepping into a place you were never meant to enter. Like bait. He turned back to the table, picked up the sandwich so he wouldn't seem rude, and got out. When he drove home, he sat in the van for a long time with the engine off. The sandwich rested on the passenger seat. Eventually, he opened the bread. Inside was butter and raw red meat. He swallowed, then noticed something else threaded through it. He pinched it between his fingers and pulled. A single hair slid free. Dark, absurdly long. He told his girlfriend what happened. Ellie laughed. "You're scared of a little old granny?" A week later, he went back. He didn't want to, but Ellie had made him realise he was being ridiculous, and the money mattered. Before he even started the mower, his eyes went to the fence again. He remembered long curling fingers reaching over the top, and once more he remembered seeing half a face peering down at him, just eyes and a forehead visible above the timber, watching. He reluctantly went inside to collect his payment. She'd left $300 on the table. Beside it, a note, the handwriting thin and spidery. "Take all money. Why no drink?" His gaze drifted to the jug of lemonade. He filled a glass, intending to pour half down the sink, to make it look like he'd had some. Instead, for some reason he couldn't explain, he took a small sip. It was cold, sweet, good. And after that, the memories returned, stronger than ever. He remembered a low, steady hum as he lay hidden in the bushes beside the fence. The yelling in the house always softened when he listened to her hums. He remembered being lifted so high he could see over the roof of his house. He remembered being placed on a sturdy tree branch in the forest. He remembered sitting in a cocoon of warmth, high above the ground, watching the stars blink into existence. He remembered running to his hiding place between the fence and the bushes, shaking, starving, sick with fear. He remembered someone chasing him, his mother, screaming. He remembered crying, and then something brushing the back of his neck, light and familiar, like long strands of hair. His mother froze, stared at something above them, terror carved into her face. He looked up. Then the fingers came. They wrapped around his mother's body and lifted her, up, up, up. She was screaming as she went, so he called out, "It's okay, Mummy. She's just taking you to see the stars." There was a deafening crunch, and her screaming stopped. He turned off the lawnmower. He didn't remember doing it. He walked toward her house on numb legs, the sound of the engine fading into something distant. The front door was open, as it always was. He climbed the staircase slowly. A low groan echoed from above. The upper floor was completely open plan, wide and sloping like an expansive attic, and laid out across it was a very tall woman. Her skin was a shade close to grey. Her limbs were long and spindly. She lay on her side on a soft floor mat, her body folded carefully, purposely, as if she had made herself smaller for him. Her eyes found his the moment he stepped inside. He dropped to his knees and sobbed before he could stop himself. Terror and grief and everything he had buried for so long rushed through him all at once. Fingers reached out, impossibly large, wrapping around him and drawing him gently toward her. He was pulled into warmth, deep and steady, and his shivering slowly began to ease. "You killed her," he sobbed. "You killed her, didn't you?" She hummed softly. Why? Why did you do that?" She brushed his hair back. His cries thinned into small, broken whimpers. "Why didn't she care about me?" he whispered. "Why did she let me starve? Why did she hurt me? I was just a little kid." Her warmth held. Her breathing stayed slow and even. He fell asleep. When he woke up, he was in a bed. Across from him, seated in an armchair, was a little old lady. Her eyes were distant, as if part of her had wandered somewhere far away and hadn't yet found its way back. On the mattress beside him was a folded note. He picked it up with shaking hands. I cursed with sighs and hunger, but I protect sweet little boy, cold and hungry. I carry you to the stars, where she not reach. Lost myself when I took her, but she not hurt you anymore. Forgive me, please. When he drove home, he finally asked his uncle to tell him the truth. He had always known something horrible had happened to his mother, but there were details he had never wanted to learn. His uncle showed him pictures first, him as a little boy, hair long and scraggly, dirty clothes torn at the seams, his body mapped with bruises and cuts and burn marks. His mother was found in the woods one day, half-eaten, declared an animal attack. People called it karma after they learned what she did to him. He continued to visit Ramona. He brushed her hair and cared for her when she was a little old granny. He lay down and listened to her hums when she was something else. He wrote all of this down because, unlike his mother, Ramona deserves to be remembered. When she was dying, he fell asleep holding her large hand, and when he woke up there was nothing. She was gone. Even though she doesn't live there anymore, even though the house is no longer occupied, he still goes back to mow her lawn. And sometimes, when the lawn is done, he lingers until the night swallows the sky. When he focuses on the constellations, it almost feels like he's rising, slowly. Above the roof of the house. 2 down, 1 to go. That one was about something monstrous that chose to protect instead of consume. This last one is about the opposite. Something that wore the face of a mother, something patient, something that waited years to be let in. And when it finally was, it didn't stop feeding. For as long as he can remember, his life has been governed by one unbreakable rule. It was never spoken aloud, never written down, never explained. It was a rule learned through punishing silence, through the sharp warning glances of his father, through a pressure in the atmosphere so thick you could feel it on your skin. The rule was simple. We do not acknowledge her. She was his mother. She lived in the house with them. She was as solid and real as the dining table they sat at every night. But to his father, and by extension to him, she was a ghost they had agreed not to see. Every morning she would be in the kitchen when he came down for breakfast. She'd be at the stove, a floral apron tied around her waist. She would turn and smile at him. It was always a sad smile, one that never quite reached her eyes. "Good morning, sweetheart," she would say, her voice soft like rustling leaves. And every morning he would look right through her. His gaze fixed on the coffee pot on the counter behind her. He'd grab a bowl, pour his own cereal, sit at the table. His father would already be there, hidden behind his newspaper, a silent monolith. She would sigh, a tiny deflated sound, and place a third plate on the table between them. Always cooked perfectly, always destined to grow cold. Sometimes she would try to start a conversation. "It looks like it might rain today. You should take an umbrella to school." His father would just turn a page. He would take a large, noisy bite of cereal, focusing on the crunch, on anything but the sound of her voice. Dinner was the same. She'd cook a full meal, something that smelled incredible, filling the house with the scent of roasted chicken or baking bread. She'd set 3 places at the table, complete with napkins and silverware. She would serve them, placing food on their plates, her movements graceful and practiced. Then she would sit down, fill her own plate, and try to engage them. "How was your day at work?" she would ask his father. He would grunt. "And school? Did you have that big test today?" she would ask him. He would mumble something non-committal, his eyes glued to his plate. The charade was suffocating. Every single day was a rehearsal and a live show of pretending this woman, his own mother, did not exist. He grew up in a house with 3 people, but was raised in a world that only acknowledged 2. For years he just accepted it. Kids accept the most bizarre circumstances as normal because it's all they've ever known. The sun rises, the sky is blue, and we don't talk to mum. It was just a fact of life. But as he got older, moving into his late teens and then his early 20s, the acceptance began to curdle into something else. First, confusion, then a deep, gnawing guilt. He started to really look at her. He saw the fine lines of sorrow etched around her eyes. He saw the way her shoulders slumped when they ignored her. He saw a woman who was profoundly, devastatingly lonely, trapped in her own home. His perception of his father shifted too. The silent, stoic man he had once seen as a protector started to look like a tyrant. His rule was strange, cruel, a calculated daily act of emotional violence. The resentment built slowly. He started having trouble sleeping. He'd lie in bed and hear the faint sounds of her weeping from their bedroom, a soft, muffled sound, the kind of crying you do when you're trying not to wake anyone. How could his father lie beside her every night, hear that, and do nothing? The breaking point came last Tuesday, a miserable, rainy day. She came into the living room and stood by the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. She wasn't trying to talk to him, she was just standing there, looking out at the world she was a part of but couldn't seem to touch. She started humming, a simple, sad little lullaby. He watched her reflection in the dark window pane, a translucent figure against the storm-tossed trees outside. Her shoulders were shaking almost imperceptibly. She was crying again, silently. Something inside him snapped. He waited until he heard his father's car pull out of the driveway. His weekly trip to the hardware store, every Tuesday evening. The house fell into a new kind of silence, one that wasn't enforced but was simply empty. Except it wasn't empty, she was still there. He found her in the kitchen washing the dinner dishes, her back to him. His heart was hammering against his ribs so hard he felt like she must be able to hear it. He took a deep breath. "Mum?" The word felt alien in his mouth, heavy and clumsy. She froze. Her hands, submerged in the soapy water, went completely still. The silence that followed was more profound than any he had ever experienced in that house. Slowly, she turned around. Her face was a mask of disbelief, her eyes wide and glistening with tears. She looked at him as if she were seeing a miracle. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Then a dawning, radiant joy, so pure it was painful to watch. "You can see me," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Oh, my sweet boy, you can finally see me." Her words confused him. They landed strangely, not quite fitting the situation. "What are you talking about?" he said. "I've always seen you. I see you every day." Her brow furrowed in confusion, but the smile didn't leave her face. "But you never looked at me. You never spoke." He told her it was their father, his rule. He had been a kid. He was scared. He didn't know what to do. Understanding washed over her face, followed by a shadow of that old sadness. She reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cold, surprisingly so, like marble that had been left in a cellar, but her grip was firm, real. She told him how much she loved him, how she had watched him grow up, proud of the man he was becoming. She asked him about school, about his friends, about his life. A torrent of questions, years of unspoken love and curiosity pouring out of her. He felt the happiest he had in years, like the world had righted itself. But that night when his father came home, he was not relieved to hear what his son had done. He was terrified. He pulled him aside, shaking, told him to pack a bag, that they were leaving tonight, that he would explain everything later. He refused. He was furious. His father looked at him for a long moment, then he turned and walked to his bedroom. He didn't see him again. Not that night, not the next morning. His father's car was gone. On his father's desk was a journal. He opened it and started reading. The journal spanned decades. His father's handwriting changed over the years, from confident strokes to a shaking, cramped script. The early entries were about his mother, how she had died in a car accident 15 years ago, while he was a baby, how grief had hollowed him out completely. And then the entries changed. She had appeared. At first just glimpses, then more solid, more present, looking exactly like his mother. His father had been overjoyed. He had spoken to her, held her, believed completely. But then small things started to feel wrong. She didn't remember things she should have remembered. She said things that were slightly off, like someone performing a role they had studied, but not quite lived. He had confided in an old man in his village, a man who had seen this before. The man had told him what it was, a mimic, a thing that fed on attention, on acknowledgement, on being seen. The more you interacted with it, the more it fed, the stronger it became, the more tethered to this world it grew. His father's solution was the only one he could think of: stop feeding it, stop seeing it, and raise his son to do the same. The last entry in the journal was dated 2 days ago. The old man had given him a final option, a ritual, a way to bind it, but it required a sacrifice, an anchor for an anchor. He told me it would probably kill me, but what life have I been living anyway? A jailer in my own home, hated by my own son. If this is the price to set him free, I will pay it. He's talking to it again. I can hear them whispering in the kitchen. I love you, my son. I hope one day you'll understand. I hope you'll forgive me. That was the last entry. He sat on the bed for a long time. His blood turned to ice water. He thought of her hand in his, how cold her skin was. He thought of her words, "You can finally see me," as if his sight was something to be earned. And then he heard it, a soft, sweet sound from the bottom of the stairs, humming, that strange little tune she was humming by the window. A floorboard creaked in the hall downstairs, then another. He scrambled off the bed, his body acting on pure instinct, and threw the lock on the bedroom door. He backed away, his eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape that wasn't there. The window was 2 stories up. Her footsteps were on the stairs now, slow, deliberate, not the light, almost soundless way she used to move. These steps had weight, they had substance. She was stronger now. He had made her stronger. The humming stopped right outside the door. "Sweetheart?" Her voice, but different, coated in a thick, cloying sweetness that made his skin crawl. "Are you in there? I was so worried. I woke up and the house was empty." He pressed himself against the far wall, his hand over his mouth to stifle his own ragged breathing. "I talked to your father," she called through the door. "He called. He's so sorry, honey, for everything. He explained it all." His mind screamed, "Liar, he's gone. You know he's gone." "He said he just needs a few days to clear his head, but he gave us his blessing. He wants us to finally have time together, just you and me. Isn't that wonderful?" Silence. He held his breath. "I know you're in there, honey. I can feel you. Come on, open the door. I'm going to make you some pancakes, just like I used to." She never used to make him pancakes. "Please, son, don't shut me out again. Not after you finally let me in. It's all going to be okay now. I'm here. I'll take care of you. We'll be a proper family." The words hung in the air, thick and venomous. Then a new sound, a soft metallic scrape. The doorknob began to jiggle, slowly at first, then with more force. Click, rattle, click. The wood around the lock groaned under the pressure. He fumbled for his phone, called 911. "There's an intruder in my house. I'm locked in my bedroom, upstairs." "Can you describe them, sir?" The scratching continued on the door. "I can't. I haven't seen them. I just hear them. They're right outside my door. Please, you have to hurry." "A unit is on its way." He ended the call. The scratching stopped the instant the call disconnected, as if it heard. As if it knew. He is trapped in this room. He's called the police and he doesn't know if they can even do anything. He doesn't know what they'll find when they arrive, but all he can do is wait. He is writing this down as fast as he can. He needs someone to know the truth. In case they don't believe him, in case something bad happens to him before they get here. And that is where we leave it tonight. 3 stories, a voice on a home video, filmed 7 months after the funeral, a monster that peered over a 10-foot fence and chose to protect the child it was watching, and something wearing a mother's face that fed every time it was seen, growing stronger, more real, more present with every single interaction. Drop a comment telling me which one got to you the most. I read every single one. See you in the next one. Story 5. I went to a free meal for the homeless. I should have stayed hungry. I have been living on the streets for 7 years. 7 long years out here in snow, freezing cold, heat, storms. I know I am not special, just one of thousands of homeless people living the exact same way. People end up out here for all kinds of reasons. Physical, mental, cut off from any chance at a normal life. Just one of many. 7 years ago, my life fell apart in the span of a single month. One day I was stressing about work, the next my mind just shut down. The place I worked at closed. My parents' house caught fire. They both burned inside, and I broke. I could not sleep at night. I was fighting off panic attacks. My girlfriend at the time stayed with me for 2 weeks. I always knew she did not love me enough to stick around, and sure enough, she left at the first real chance she got. So I was left alone, with my problems, with my demons. In the end, I had nothing left. Just a bag of personal belongings, untreated PTSD, and a mild paranoid personality disorder. That is how I ended up out here, with nothing. Over time, I completely shut down. I did not trust anyone or anything. Being alone out here felt better. At least I could rely on myself. Lately, since the weather had been better, I had been spending my mornings sitting in a nearby park, close to the underpass where I sleep at night. The quiet, tree-filled park calmed me down. Just a few old folks walking around, a couple of mums with their kids. I watched the birds, a few magpies and pigeons pecking at the ground. The whole thing felt like some kind of modern still life painting. That is when he walked up to me. Broke the moment, the soft sunlight warming my face. My hand immediately slid to the dull pocket knife I keep in my jacket. "Good afternoon, my friend," the stranger said, the second he stepped up next to me. The sunlight was too strong, I could not see his face, but his clothes, bright white, spotless. The complete opposite of my worn-out jacket and jeans that looked like they were 100 years old. "What is your name, my friend?" he asked, and sat down right next to me. I could not even speak. What the hell was this guy doing? I am a dirty, stinking homeless man. My beard is long, my hair is a mess, and he just sits down next to me? "Can I help you with something?" I said, my voice low and rough. "My friend, I am the one here to help you," he said kindly. "Come with me. We will give you clean clothes, a hot meal, medical care. I am sure there is something you need." "Who are you with?" I asked dismissively. I never liked these church types. Sure, they helped, but there was always something they wanted in return. Sit through their sermons, hand out flyers, bring in more homeless people. It was never my thing. "Come, and I will show you, my friend," he said after a moment. "I will pass, thanks." The man in the clean white clothes just smiled, like I had said something funny. "Alright, my friend, we are just beyond the park. If you change your mind, come by. We serve lunch, and dinner too." My stomach growled quietly. I stayed perfectly still, like some kind of wild animal, but it was not hunting, it was fear. That frozen kind, like when you see someone get hit by a car and you just cannot move. The man stood up from the bench, stretched his arms up toward the sky, letting out a satisfied sigh as he soaked in the sunlight. "Here, take this at least," he said, handing me a small package. "Something to eat, my friend, and our card, in case you change your mind, so you know where to find us." Then with one last kind smile, he walked away. I put the little package aside. I did not trust it enough to eat whatever was in it. I kept my eyes on the entrance of the building, just beyond the park. Wide double doors thrown open like it was some kind of concert check-in. Instead of security or ticket scanners, there were just a few white-clothed, cheerful figures standing out front. Homeless people were arriving, maybe a dozen of them. The people in white welcomed the ragged street folks with warm smiles, inviting them inside like they were long-lost family. I did not want to go in blind. That is not how I work. I needed to see what I was walking into, but hunger had been gnawing at me since yesterday. Water I could manage from the park fountain, but food. I could not even remember the last time I had a real meal. Something about the place felt off, but I had been to a few of these so-called soup kitchens over the years, most of them tied to some kind of religious setup. This would not be any different. I go in, eat, and leave. I do not need anything else from them. As I stepped out from behind the bushes, I ran straight into someone I recognized. "Noah?" the thin, bearded man with one eye asked. I knew who he was, but I was not in the mood. I was already dealing with something I did not want to deal with, and now he had to show up too. "Noah, it is me, Colton. You remember me?" Colton was a good guy. Well, as much as a one-armed, one-eyed veteran could be. His head was even more messed up than mine. Coming back from Iraq only made things worse for him. He was unlucky enough to lose his arm to his own grenade, and that is how he lost part of his vision too. No medals, no recognition, no heroic story waiting for him back home, just being forgotten, and the streets. "Yeah, Colton," I replied flatly. "I know who you are." We walked in together, Colton talking non-stop. As we followed one of the white-clothed people, I tried to map the place out without being obvious about it. I pulled my dirty hood over my head. I did not see many ways out. We moved down a hallway. Large, empty rooms lined both sides, looked like lecture halls. When we reached the end, I could already smell the food. Freshly cooked, real meat. The kind of smell that almost melts in your mouth before you even taste it. Even Colton quieted down. I could see it on his face, like he had not smelled something like that since he was a kid. Then we stepped through the door and finally saw what we came for. A big, open room, like a school cafeteria. Long rows of grey metal tables packed with homeless people. Most of them were already eating, and not just eating, devouring it. Thick stew, steaming hot, heavy, rich soups. It did not feel like a soup kitchen. It felt like a restaurant. Colton rushed straight to the line like a starving wolf. Something about the place felt wrong, not just to the broken part of my mind. Too clean, too friendly, too perfect. It actually made me less hungry. Behind me, the white-clothed guide shut the doors, then smiled at me before walking off. "Friend, I am glad you came," a familiar voice said. It was the same guy from the park, just an average young man, clean, normal. His white clothes still perfectly pressed. "What is this place?" I asked. "Friend, this is love. You get food and clothes, just like I told you. The Prince's church keeps its word." The Prince? Church? Only one thought made sense. I need to get out of here. "I want to leave," I said firmly. He just kept smiling at me, like he had not even heard what I said. "Of course," he said, still smiling. "Just have something to eat first, since you are already here. After that, you can go wherever you want." That smile was getting under my skin. I almost wished he would get angry. At least then I would know what I was dealing with. But that smile felt worse than anything else. I could feel panic starting to creep in. The quiet, the white clothes, the constant smiling, the way everyone ate so calmly, so properly, like they were not even homeless. Colton dragged me to a seat and I sat down. I did not eat. I watched. And then I noticed something I had missed when we first walked in. At the far end of the room there was a low raised platform. Not a stage exactly, more like a presentation area. Empty for now, but the way the tables were arranged, the way every row faced it, it was not a cafeteria layout. It was an audience layout. Nobody else seemed to notice, or if they did not care. They were too focused on the food in front of them. I watched the people in white moving through the room, refilling bowls, handing out fresh clothes, always smiling, always calm. And I started noticing something else. The way they looked at the people eating, not with warmth, not with pity, with something closer to patience. The patience of someone waiting for a process to complete. Then the lights in the room changed, not dramatically, just a subtle shift. The overhead lights dimmed slightly, and the platform at the far end of the room brightened, and something was wheeled out onto it. A figure in a wheelchair, covered entirely in white cloth. Seated perfectly still. The cloth covered everything, including the face. Around the wheelchair stood 4 enormous men, easily the biggest people I had ever seen in my life. Their clothing was plain, but their exposed arms and necks were covered in deeply carved symbols, not tattoos, carved, like someone had taken a blade to the skin and worked it into permanent channels. The room went quiet, not because anyone called for quiet, it just happened, as if the air itself changed frequency. The figure in the wheelchair slowly raised one hand, and then a voice came out from beneath the white cloth, not loud, not amplified, but somehow filling every corner of the room with absolute clarity. "You are welcome here," the voice said. "You have been forgotten by the world, but you are not forgotten by the Prince." The homeless people around me were completely still. Forks stopped moving. Bowls sat untouched. Every face in the room was turned toward the platform with an expression I recognized after a moment. Relief. The desperate, aching relief of someone who has been invisible for years and is suddenly being seen. I felt it too. Just for a second. Just a flicker of it. And then I noticed the smell. Something underneath the food. Something chemical and sweet, spreading through the warm air of the room. My head felt slightly wrong. Not dizzy exactly, just slower. Like the space between thoughts had gotten a little wider. The food. Whatever they had put in the food was already moving through the room. I had not eaten anything. I looked at Colton. His eyes were glassy, his expression slack and open, his bowl scraped clean. I grabbed his arm under the table and squeezed hard. He turned to look at me slowly, too slowly. "Colton," I said quietly, "do not eat anything else. Look at me. Look at me." Something behind his eyes flickered, just briefly. But then the voice from the platform spoke again, and his attention pulled back to the stage like something on a line. The prince spoke for a long time, about being cast out, about being chosen, about a new order that had been building quietly, invisibly, in the spaces that ordinary society refused to look at, using the people that ordinary society refused to see. I kept my eyes down, kept my breathing even, kept mapping the room. There were 4 doors, the 2 we had come through at the back, a service door to the left near the kitchen, and the main double doors directly behind the platform. The 4 enormous throne bearers stood between me and every exit worth taking. I pressed my knee against Colton's under the table. He did not respond. Then the voice from the wheelchair said something that made the temperature in the room seem to drop. "Tonight, one among you will be given the gift of full consecration. One of you will be the prince's vessel." A murmur moved through the crowd. Not fear, something worse. Eagerness. My eyes moved across the room. A boy 2 rows ahead of me had gone rigid. He was young, maybe late teens, and his hands were gripping the edge of the table so hard his knuckles had gone white. He had not eaten anything either. He was looking at the exits. He was the only other person in the room who had not touched the food. And the people in white were already moving toward him. The boy stood up fast, knocking his chair back. Run, I thought, run right now. He ran. The crowd, silent just moments ago, launched at him all at once. He screamed, kicked, thrashed like an animal caught in a trap. I just sat there, frozen, watching it unfold. Then I felt a hand grab me and yank me out of my seat. Colton. I do not even remember how he got out of the row, but there he was, gripping my arm with what remained of his. "Move," he shouted. "We have to get out of here." He did not give me a second to think, just dragged me along. The crowd was still tearing into the kid behind us. His screams were still echoing through the room. Colton was already sprinting for the door. Just a few more steps and we would be out. But then something stepped into our path. A filthy, long-haired man, ragged, standing right in front of Colton. He did not move, just stared at him with a wild, empty look. "Unbeliever," he muttered. "Unbelieve." Colton did not wait. He lunged at him like a wild animal, knife in hand. But the strike did not land right, just caught the man in the arm. And that was enough. They crashed into each other, struggling, grappling. I froze. "Get to the door," Colton yelled, choking the man against the wall with one arm. "Go, make a way." That snapped me out of it. I ran, straight for the double doors we came through. I shoved them open. The hallway was right there. Left turn, the exit. Just run. I glanced back. Chaos. Bodies piled over each other between the rows. The thing in the wheelchair was still on stage, silent now. The kid was not screaming anymore. Colton was still fighting. Do I help him? Do I save him? After what he just did? After sacrificing that kid? Or would he throw me to them next if it meant saving himself? I did not get to decide, because when I turned back toward the hallway, I ran straight into one of the prince's throne bearers. Up close, he was even bigger, his entire body covered in carved symbols and words I could not even read. He grabbed my hoodie at the chest and threw me into the hallway like I weighed nothing. I slammed hard against the wall. Next thing I knew, I was on the ground, dazed, looking up at him. And then I realized he was not alone. The prince stood behind him, floating, his white robes almost glowing under the lights, the lamb mask shining like polished metal in the sterile brightness. "Do not be afraid, Noah," the prince said, his voice ringing like metal. "You may yet find mercy in me." My body trembled. Even if I wanted to move, I do not think I could have. Then something crashed through the doorway behind them. Colton, covered in blood, clutching the knife. He charged straight at them. The big man reacted fast, but not fast enough. Colton drove the blade into his stomach. It did not drop him, did not even slow him down. Like an enraged bull, the giant grabbed Colton by the neck and lifted him off the ground like he was nothing. "Unbelievers," the prince said quietly, stepping back. That was it. I ran. Did not think, did not look back, just ran for the exit. I hit the doors so hard they flew open, knocking aside the white-clothed figures standing guard outside. I stopped for just a second, turned back. Colton was already on the ground, his neck bent at an angle it should not be. The giant was still standing, blood pouring from his stomach, the knife sticking out of him. And the prince just watched me, through that silver mask.
I could not see his face, but I swear it felt like he was
disappointed, like I had abandoned him. Then the doors behind them burst open. The crowd poured out, an army of the brainwashed, coming for me. So I ran, as fast as I could, through the night, through the half-sleeping city, straight into the darkness. I thought I had run out of the world itself. Maybe I did. I left everything behind. Colton, the prince, my old life, all of it. I am trying to put things back together now, trying not to end up back on the street, trying to live something that resembles a normal life again. But that day never left me. The fear never left me. And that is 5 for tonight. A girl who found out the monster was never supernatural. A man who walked into the woods and walked out with a stranger. A bus driver saved by passengers who had been dead for 20 years. A theatre worker who learned too late what happens when the wrong man walks through the door. And a man who almost did not walk out of a free meal. Thanks for being here. Stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next one.